offensive players going down on one defender, and that one defender is talking like, hey, I stopped the ball, or I'm doing this, and those other four coming down behind them, three coming down, two coming down, one coming down, they're communicating that strong side, weak side, open player. So then that allows communication, allows them to be in the help side of the line, and seeing both man ball and themselves as well. So that's one that we use a lot.
Communication, help. Gotcha.
Cool.
And what else you said? Communication, help, and what was the other one, Coach?
That weak side, so they're on that strong side, ball side. That weak side player, they're coming down and they're going to be in help side defense now. And then they're on that help side.
Okay, gotcha. Now you use that more or less for transition defense?
Transition defense.
Gotcha. Yeah.
That's good stuff right there.
And then it's a good one too for offensive side too. If you're trying to score 5-on-4, 5-on-3, so then you're making the most effective pass and getting a good shot instead of coming down, jacking up a three in transition. When you're coming down 5-on-3, 5-on-2, you're communicating, getting the ball, running your sets, finding the open person as well.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Good stuff. And I tell this too, especially for the any coaches on here, like college, you're recruiting, and in high school, of course, you're looking for those players to choose on your team. I recruited players that had this. If I had a player that want to jack up shots and they lazy on defense, I mean, I will almost have to see something in them that I can help. But if they ain't playing no D, but then they get excited when they get the ball, I don't care if they average a 40 a game. You know, I'm going to the next court, you know. But, you know, a real example in my life when I was recruiting, when I was at Winthrop University, recruited a team called Carolina's Elite by my guy, Coach Chris Meadows. And I seen those type of principles in his players because they getting down and dirty on defense. It's like smacking the floor, sitting down, making noise, get excited on defense. You know what I'm saying? And for me, okay, I'm coming to that court because I don't need a whole bunch of players that average 20. But I need me 5 players that can play some defense, and I'll take that all day long. And so really had a chance to recruit his players, man. Loved it because he taught certain principles and he taught the game the right way in terms of just the totality of the player, the individual, and is want to do a shameless plug here because he has a book, and I just want to just kind of show you guys this. It's a book that he has, and it's called I Am D1 that he has coming out, and it really is based on a lot of these things that, you know, I'm sharing with you that I saw him do. And he did this with his players. He's trained his players to be a certain caliber, not only on the court, but also mentally, and having the D1 mindset. And the D1 mindset is not just trying to go D1, but there is a certain level that you carry yourself in all that you do on the court and off the court. And so he's put this into this project, and I had a really great time just talking with him as he was developing it and things like that. And so a lot of the stuff that he has in there, even with me reading it, it really speaks to the type of work that he put in that I actually saw as a D1 coach, and was a lot of the reason why I recruited his players. And so, you know, if you guys are out there and you have players that are trying to go to college or whatnot, families, you know, a lot of times these families, they don't know the things to do, how to prepare, what type of travel team to get your players on, how to communicate with these colleges, all those kind of things, which I can't tell you the countless number of people that I've talked to that the families just didn't know some of this stuff, you know. So I just wanted to give a plug to him because, you know, he's been a real instrumental in my life. You know, I love what he's done over the years, and the players, one of the players he's worked with, you know, McDonald's All-American this year, coming out of college, high school and stuff. He's done a lot of great things to work with a lot of great people. So when you get an opportunity, make sure you check out his website and check his product out, because I think it'll be great and beneficial for coaches, parents, and even players that are looking to go to the next level to read. So just wanted to share that with you guys real quick, and before we move on. So And I got my boy Chris. He's actually on here today, so I appreciate you being on, man. So
Thank you, man. I appreciate the plug, man. I wasn't expecting that.
oh man, no problem, man. You know, hey, I love when people are in the space of ball and they doing it right, man. And I think that you know, as coaches, you know, if you can get in this niche and you aim to do something different for the right reasons, I think that you can see the fruit of it. And I've seen the fruit of it in what you're doing, and I've stole some stuff from you too. So, you know, it's all good.
Well, you know, one of the things that I want to thank you for taking the time to help people and help us just try to really help our players get better. But I want to offer this to everybody who's on the call. You know, first of all, you do a great job. You're impacting lives, and you know, you're giving a lot of kids belief in themselves who probably don't have it. But one thing I'll say is, if you can change the way a player thinks, you're going to change their life. And if you can get them to do things and even think outside of the box, I think that's the point that you really become a transcendent coach. And I think it forces you to even let go of your boundaries that you have and really demand these players to grow and get outside of the status quo. And I think the best coaches throughout all generations have been that. So a lot of coaches think it's about control, but it's really about relinquishing control. And if you can get players to go beyond the norm, I think you allow players to become things that only they dream of. And so, you know, looking at what Coach Shine is doing right now, I think it's really about empowering players so that in games they can be free and they can do things that they really hadn't done before. So I think that's something I love about what Coach Shine is doing, is not just the defensive principles aspect of it. And that was why, you know, I wrote the book, I Am D1, because it's not the level that you play it, it's the mentality that you think. And you can look at certain players who played, they were average their whole career, but they got with one coach and their game just exploded. And that's because that coach was able to tap into their mental. And so as a coach, if you can empower players to get in the gym and make them love the game and have them become better shooters, just transcend their skill set and mental, I really believe that you're going to change not only their basketball game, but how they approach life.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think that's something that coaches have to do. It's not about our control. It's about if we can empower players. You know, that's really coaching. That's about life coaching too. So I appreciate you, Coach.
Appreciate you too, man. And that's a lot of stuff you said there. I kind of want to piggyback on something you said before we get into these last couple principles that I want to share. You know, we got about 30 minutes left. Empowering players. You know, I've seen coaches that are, and I'm not knocking anybody that may be like this, but I'm just talking about what I felt like worked for me, even as a player and even as a coach. I empowered my players, and one of the things that I really tried to do, and this is more of an offensive example just to kind of get you to kind of feel it. We did a lot of read and react, drills, and if you know it, 95% of the game is read and react. They're constantly reading and reacting what's going on because no defense is going to be the same. They're reading and reacting. So I did a lot of read and react in practice and in individuals, because if I just show them motion and they have to run to a spot and then they feel like I've accomplished what coach wanted me to do because I'm in this spot now, that's not good for them, because they're feeling like, or if coach yells at me because I wasn't there, you know, it gives that kind of sense of like, you know, it makes it hard for players, honestly. And so what I tried to do is I tried to free my players and empower them. So there's going to be things on the court that my players can read that I can't because I'm not there, or I didn't see that sequence of events happen right before me, or I wasn't looking at what they were looking at the time, you know. But because I feel like I'm a player's coach, I go through a lot of stuff with them. You know, I get on the court, I show them things. I let them react to stuff I do. So now when they're on the court, they're free. I give them the freedom to react to what they've seen. And although in practice, I can't completely give them every scenario that'll happen and choreograph every single reaction that they're going to give to it, I can take them through some things. So in some of our read and react drills, we would have certain. I would be like the defense. There'd be other coaches or managers or whatever be the defense, and then this player has to run a play or go through something. But I hit them with a few different types of defensive things to make them have to counter and do something different to get by me or to get their shot off. And so when I'm doing that, I'm giving them the freedom to react to that. And I'm not getting mad at them either because they didn't do it a certain way, because they can see things. I mean, I've seen my players pull off some stuff that I'm like, man, I didn't see that. But you have to train them to react to things with the same goal in mind of scoring or hitting the open man or whatever. So one of my favorite offenses that we ran was the flex, the basic flex offense. You pass it, then you go away to the corner, the screen, basic flex. And with the basic flex, there are countless numbers of options coming off of it, different reads, different ways to react. So as much as I could in practice, we would break down the flex to different reads that we would do. So like, let's say for instance, once in the part of the flex where the big goes down and screens for the guard off the block, and we're making that pass to that guard. Now that guard can shoot, that guard can pump fake and go past them. There's a number of things that the guard can do. So we try to break down as many things that they can so they can see the reads, but there's going to be some reads that's going to come by way of reaction. A double team might come at them, so they're slipping through the double team. Or there might be a switch off a screen, so now I'm teaching that guard to retreat, dribble up top, and pull the big up. Now it's a one-on-one with them in the big. So it's just a number of things, but I try to give them the freedom to react to things. And so I like what Coach Chris was saying, because you're empowering them, so now they can freely flow. And like on defense, the same thing I did. I empowered them to say, hey, I want you to make steal attempts. I want you to go after the ball. But I just want you to do smart gambles. And every gamble won't be completely smart. You're going to miss it at times. But for the most part, by teaching them to do smart gambles, you can kind of get a hold on them, trying to steal the ball. And then they're all the way at the locker room now. And then the play is that way. So I have to teach them how to not take themselves out the play. And just different things like that. So let's go hit on a couple of these other points here. And then we'll close this thing out. So I hope you guys are getting a little something from it. And I definitely appreciate the coaches that are, giving their input, and definitely means a lot. So, all right, here we go. So I'll kind of skim through this turnovers forced area. I always say if your conference or the NCAA tracks stats, then it would behoove me to pay attention to what they're tracking. They're tracking this, so I need to pay attention to it, because if they paying people to track this stuff for every team, 1, Division 2, men's, women, I'm like, I need to pay attention to it. So I look on the thing and it says turnovers forced. They're tracking this stat, so I need to pay attention. So we forced 25 turnovers a game. All right, so these were forced turnovers. These were not like they accidentally dribbled off their foot while they was dribbling down court, or these are direct, like we forced it, we got a hand on it, we put the pressure on them. So there were games we had more than 25 turnovers, but this was just the forced turnover section. So it was a big thing for us, because what I would do was I would look at the deficiencies in the other team. So like I said before, one of the first things in your scout, whether you do it as a coach or as a manager or an assistant or whoever, you need someone on your scouting report to have on your scouting report the turnovers that each player, especially those starters, what are the turnovers that they're averaging? So if the starting point guard is averaging 5, okay, we're going to exploit that. If we're not going to get 5, we're going to get more. And then especially the backups, because of course the backups aren't as good as the starters, so they might average more. So we need to make sure that somebody is on that when it comes to scout. If an assistant coach is, this is their scout coming up, that needs to be on the scouting report. Because like I say, our focus was we're forcing turnovers and we're trying to score off of turnovers. You know what I'm saying? That's what we're trying to do. So that was a big thing for us. So on this next page here, identify the opponent's source of turnovers. It's the very first thing that you need to do. That's what I did, man. It was just, I mean, it's a no-brainer to me, because you want to exploit what the averagers are saying. If it's saying that a player is averaging 5, it's saying it for a reason, because that means that there's sometimes that they have more, there's sometimes that they have less. But we want to hit that average. So that was our goal. And then you focus on points off of turnovers. So make sure that you have times in practice where you're focusing on points off of turnovers, because here's the thing. After you get the turnover, then what you going to do? Go and do some wild shot or throw it out of bounds? Like, then you got the turnover and it looks good on the stat sheet, but it really don't mean nothing because you didn't score. You really want to try to score off of turnovers. So, for instance, when we turn the ball over, a lot of times when you have teams that turn the ball over, what's the first thing the players do when they turn it? They down on themselves, or they look over at coach to see if coach mad or something like that. A lot of players, unless they're trained, they're not really trained to turn over, let me get back now. You know, that play's over, I'm sprinting back. You know, you're not going to see that a lot of times. And if they're doing it, there's a delay. But when our players got the ball off a turnover, we knew that our other players, somebody's streaking down court. So when we get that turnover, it's an automatic, I'm looking down the court because I'm trying to fling it and get that easy layup. So when we get it, our players had directives. We had directives for our players. So we would teach them that. We also had situations where if we couldn't get the ball up and get points off of turnovers or fast break points, then we knew certain things to go to. We might have a set of quick hitters or we might have a delayed offense where we know we hitting the trail. So to the defense, once we steal the ball, it looks like we're just coming down and setting up a play, but it's going to be like a secondary quick hitter where once we reverse that thing, we're hitting the trail coming down for just a quick hitter. So, you know, whatever it might be for you, all I'm saying is make sure that you have a set of directives for once you turn the ball over. Now, what do you want them to do? Do you just want them to walk it up and get in the offense? Or for me, I'm trying to take advantage of the transition, the slowness of my opponent from offense to defense. I'm trying to get in front of that so that I can score the ball before they even can start thinking. You know, so that's one of the things that, you know, we had. That's one of the things that I would really highly suggest you think about. We did a lot of this in our transition drill. We, you know how the drill that you have, you have a 5-on-5. You line your players up on the baseline, then you line the defense up across the foul line. And when you throw the ball to an offensive player, that player that's across from that offensive player has to run and touch the line and then sprint back. So that was one of the drills that we worked on because now we had numbers. And it was my responsibility to make sure I taught my players how to take advantage of the numbers, because now you're 5-on-4 and there's going to be a breakdown somewhere and we have to find that breakdown. So you might have a team that is going to rotate certain players to the 3-point line in a transition offense. You might have some kind of quick hitter set that you're going to run. Whatever it is, you know, that's just one of the drills that we kind of worked on that end, because we were trying to get steals and turnovers and we were trying to convert quickly and then set our press back up. So that's kind of how we roll with that. Then the next one here, nothing is free. Nothing. Not, you know, I see teams all the time, and as you watch the tournament, just check this out. There's teams that sit there and their defense is in a 3-2 or 2-3 or in a man, but they'll just sit there and the pass will go from the wing to the top to the other wing, into the post, back out, and nobody's trying to impede the pass at all. Nobody's trying to steal it. Nothing. The teams are just watching. And for me, I'm thinking, you're out there expending energy. So if you're going to expend energy, expend it trying to stop what they're doing. You know, I've been in systems where we try to keep the ball on one side. So once you pass it to the right, you're not coming back across the midline to go back to the other side. You know, I think to me, I looked at it as a waste of energy. And that's not to say it didn't happen. But if we're going to be out there playing D, let's play D. Let's stop them from doing anything they want to for free. You know, and you definitely have to have that mindset, especially when you're trying to win a championship, when you're trying to go for it all, when you're trying to dominate the other team. You have to have that nothing is free mindset. And so down here at the bottom, additional turnover helpers. You know, I said there are a few things that you could train your players to do that will further help you force turnovers. With these things, you may even end up causing turnovers that were not directly forced stat-wise, but they still count as turnovers, unforced. When the team throws the ball away, travel, step out of bounds, double dribble, or mishandle the ball without a direct steal, those are called unforced turnovers. So like I showed you guys, we were ranked high with forced turnovers, but the unforced turnovers, sometimes that stuff can happen with talking, like the excessive talking. You're loud, you got hands up, you're pressuring. Man, sometimes you see teams, they'll throw a pass, but they're so thinking about you and what your team is doing that they're so out of whack and they get throwing the ball somewhere. I've had it happen a lot of times. Teams it just causes chaos because of the pressure. So you definitely want to, that talking thing, definitely make sure you implement that in your system to where you have drills where the players must talk, because that'll really help. Couple more areas here. We got a few minutes here. 3-point field goal defense. Now, one of my pet peeves is losing because I allow teams to shoot wide open 3-pointers. So, you know, I was on a call with a coach a few days ago. We were watching the Wright State and IUPUI game. And so in this game, if you I look back through the last 5 to 7 games that this team played, and IUPUI is a 3-point shooting team. As a matter of fact, when you go back through their stats for the season, they average at least 7 3-pointers a game. So that's 21 points. 21 points. All right. So when I looked at their game against Wright State, they went 0 for 13 from the 3-point line, and I believe they lost by like 9 or 11 or something like that. And you can tell that Wright State took that away from them. They took the 3-point line away from them. So a lot of times when you just take one aspect of somebody's game away, that's good enough for the win. If they're counting on those 7 threes a game, I'm taking that away, because if I look back through their season, that's what they've done to win. They've depended on that. So you take 21 points away from somebody, that's ball game. All right. So I made it a point that, you know what, we're not losing. If we lose, it won't be because we didn't get out on the 3-point line. So one of the things I did was when we played, you know, our default was to guard the 3-point line. So my players had to be standing on the 3-point line. But a lot of times I went, beyond that, and we guarded about 5 to 10 feet from the 3-point line. So when they crossed half court, we were meeting them, because if we're meeting them there, they're not able to just comfortably step up to the 3-point line and catch a pass. So we took the 3-point line away from teams. So I had 2 rules. Either you had to be there in front of that defender, that offensive player, on the rotation of that ball, on the flight of that ball, you're moving, and when they catch it, they can look in your eyes because you're right there. Or if it was a situation where they made a throw on a skip pass and you booking it trying to get there and you didn't get there and they're winding up, it need to be like this. You got to get there. And so we worked on that. Like we worked it in practice, and worked it in practice. And so for this particular season, we were 27th in the nation in 3-point field goal defense. I wanted to be higher, you know what I'm saying? But, we were 27th. But for me, what this does was it showed me, like, when you work something and you work it, it's not going to be a mystery to people. It's not going to be a mystery to teams. And it's not going to be a mystery to stats, because if you do it, it's going to work. If you work on guarding the defense, the 3-point line, it's going to work. If you don't work it, it won't work. Like, it's just that simple. So if you got a team that's, you looking back and they like, man, 7, 8 3-pointers a game, and then you get beat by them, but they have 4 or 5 wide open threes, you have to work in that area, because in that point, we always said, and it's kind of like a moral victory, but it's like they didn't beat us, we beat ourselves. But I don't want to lose, period. So this is something that I worked on. We worked on it, and teams didn't beat us by the 3-ball. They just didn't. This little diagram here, this was just so the 5-on-4 drill, this was just showing a basic, when you're going back, in the zone, the coverages. So this was so when we would do this drill and we would go back to the 3-2, this was basic. This is not perfect, because you might have the point person over here. In that case, you got to go here, But once they get back, you had your coverages. So this point person, I didn't have them on the 3-point line. I had them up here. This person right here, this was their domain. We're not letting passes to this wing. And when the ball was over here, this other wing, they're dropping back in here. So this was their coverage zones. And sometimes I would have tape on the floor, because, they know their coverages. The block person right here, when that ball goes to the corner, they're out there. They're covering that. This person over here is over here. So that was just a basic kind of coverage range, that I had for each player when we would go back to the 3-2 zone. So I just wanted to show you guys that. And this last one I want to go over is the post player defense. And so when I was at Central State, I would go down to Ohio State practices a lot. And when I went to Ohio State practices, one of the biggest things that I noticed from them was they had tape all over the floor, like everywhere. And I'm like, man, like, I love this. Like, so I was asking what different things they did it for and whatever, their lanes, their open windows on offense for their ball rotations, all kinds of stuff. So I got back to Central State practices. We didn't have tape, so I started putting like athletic tape on the floor. I was just trying to make it happen, because I'm like, you know what? I'm going to use this to benefit me. You know what I'm saying? And so by the time I got to Winthrop, we had the budget to where we can buy tape. So I was like, Coach, I got to order tape. So we 2 big boxes of tape, yellow, red, black, for different things, And so my responsibilities was the bigs. And so I worked the bigs out, and I did them in the individual workouts and stuff like that during practice, the breakdown sessions. I would work the bigs. And so one day, one of the things my dad taught me was, you don't never let a big set up on the block. They just come down the court and they go right to the block and sit there and turn around and get position. You can't do that. You know what I'm saying? You have to make them fight to get position. So one of the days we was working with the bigs, and I started yelling that instruction out. I said, hey, make sure you go and meet and greet that player. So we went to a lot of meet and greets, and so and it kind of struck me. I was like, meet and greet. So I was like, I'm gonna make a line. And so we call it the meet and greet line. And so this line was almost reminds you of a 3-point line, but it starts at the short corner and it goes all the way up to about maybe 10 feet, like on this diagram, in the paint. And so when you see these bigs from the other team, they're making their way down the court, you don't want them to get down here and just set up. You know what I'm saying? That's real easy, especially for a big that is mechanical and they're just a back to the basket block big. That's going to make their job so easy. But when these bigs are coming down the court, if your defenders, which are the red circles, they step out 10 feet, 8 to 10 feet, and you stop there and make that player have to fight through you or give them some kind of resistance, now you're going to see what that big is really made of, because now either they're going to have a Kevin Garnett post game where they got all kinds of stuff where they can back you down or sweep through and dribble around you and spin move from 10 feet out, or you're going to realize that this big cannot play or function from 10 feet out. So now you have an advantage. So we had a game like this, and we played one of the Big South opponents, had this 6'4" player, and they were just straight up blocked to the basket, back to the basket. So because we had been working on meet and greet, this helped us in that game.